Well, hi again, everyone. We welcome you to the WKYC High School Football Playoff Game of the Week preview show. I'm Dave DeNatale, along with Tyler Carey. We are in week 3 of playoff action. It's the regional semifinal round, and Tyler, you hope that great matchups lend itself to the playoffs. Usually, it's when you start to get to this round, and certainly the regional finals, you get those matchups that you hope are going to pop your way. It's rare we ever do a rematch in a season, but we're going to have one. We started our season with Benedictine Walsh Jesuit. We're going to continue with it here in the playoffs.
Absolutely, Dino. And it will be the regional semifinal matchup in Division II's Region 5 between Walsh Jesuit and Benedictine that will be this week's WKYC.com high school football playoff game of the week. Now, just to give some people some insight, we had this circled, this potential matchup circled, probably since round 1. We kind of do some planning, like, all right, if we do this game, then we couldn't do this game. Right. It's part of the reason we didn't do Hudson and Walsh last week was because we were thinking about this potentially epic showdown. And boy, was it epic in week 1. Benedictine winning their 8th in a row over Walsh overall, 35-34 in double overtime. A missed extra point providing the difference for the Warriors. A lot has changed since then. Benedictine, the number 1 seed in that region. They did lose 2 in a row down the stretch, and they've kind of been a little bit sluggish in the playoffs. Walsh had another very bitter loss with an identical score later in the year, but they're 10-2, their best season in 10 years. And I really think, Dino, both of these teams, the winner of this game is likely the favorite to come out of Region 5 and potentially make the state title run.
Yeah, I mean, here, and I'll be honest with you. I think when we saw Benedictine at the end of the regular season play Nordonia, and even though the Bengals lost that game, I can remember you and I having a conversation saying, boy, we get into the playoffs, we're going to see some combination of Benedictine, Hoban, Walsh, or Nordonia at some point. We will have 2 of those 4 teams in a game at some point playing each other, and probably would be a game that we would do. And the bracket just worked out like this, where you get the rematch. I'm with you. The Bengals didn't play well down the stretch. They had a bunch of injuries that, of course, with gamesmanship they didn't tell us about before the Nordonia game. Bedingfield didn't play, and he's not only the best defensive player on the Bengals, he's one of the top defensive players in all of Northeast Ohio. So they've been dealing with some injuries. They've just tried to kind of gut through and muddle along here, but we've earmarked this level. I mean, again, this is going to have everything you want. It's not only a regular season match or a rematch, it's a playoff rematch from last year. Yep. In a game that we were supposed to do last year.
Yeah.
That Mother Nature denied us. Weather's supposed to be great in Elyria Friday. Incidentally, that's where the game is going to be over at Ely Stadium. But yeah, I just think this is, it's one of those things. Is the encore as good as the main show? Yeah, I think we got a good shot at that. I really do.
Well, if it's half as good as the first one was, and I think we're going to be in pretty good shape Friday night. You mentioned Darrell Bedingfield. Yeah, didn't play in the Nordonia game that we were at. I tend to believe, they never confirmed this, I tend to believe he probably could have played had it been a do-or-die playoff game, but because they know, all right, we're already going to get a top 4 seed, more than likely, let's just maybe be cautious here. And what do you know? They lost the game and they still get the number 1 seed. We know how good Bedingfield is. To me, the key for this Benedictine team is going to be CJ Yarborough, the quarterback. Yes. Played very well down the stretch in that win over Walsh. Didn't play very well in that Nordonia loss. Played well last week against Riverside in a game that was a little bit closer until late than I think either you or I thought it was going to be. If he plays well, I think Benedictine could come away with yet another win and maybe even another overtime win. That playoff game you mentioned was also an overtime that the Bengals won. But if he struggles again, then you could potentially see Walsh not only win this game, but maybe even run away with it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with Walsh's offense, the way they've been been working. I mean, they put 34 on the board with the double overtime in week 1. We know what DeNatale can do as a kind of the field general running that offense. You just get the sense if it's going to be a score, if it's going to be another shootout, Walsh is ready for that. And it's just if it needs to be a defensive battle. I thought the Warriors proved last week against Hudson, if they needed to pitch a shutout in the second half, well, we can do that too.
Oh, absolutely. And that was a real gut check win for Walsh against a very good Hudson team. Keep in mind, this Warrior team, only about 3 years ago, they won 2 games in 3 years. They were 1-9, 0-10, 1-9. And now here they are at 10-2, and really 2 points away from being 12-0. They had that loss to Benedictine and then another 35-34 loss to Hoban in extra time. And I think you and I have talked about all season, Walsh feels like they're finally able to compete with the Benedictines and most especially the Hobans of the world with the talent they brought in, with the job Nick Alexander has done with that program. Matt Natale, we knew how good he was at quarterback in that first game. And Jack Romanini, a great two-way player on both sides of the ball. I think you and I had said when the postseason began, we looked at this region and said, keep an eye on Walsh because we all know Hoban's going to have that target on their back. But if Walsh can win this game and then maybe get past Hoban, which they almost did in week 3, could this be their time to get to that mountaintop and get that second state championship in program history?
It's all there for them. It is absolutely all there for them, but they've got to conquer these demons. And, that's of course, presuming that Hoban gets past Nordonia, that's a whole nother game. But, they've got to conquer this demon of Benedictine. That's, 8 wins in a row. They've got to figure out a way to not just physically win this game, but psychologically overcome it. And if they do that, they've got a good shot to win. TC, let's take a look at the playoff matchups around Northeast Ohio and what we have left. Reducing the amount of games we've got left in terms of Northeast Ohio. The numbers are going down, but we've got 4 locals in Division I, Region 1 to kick us off.
Yeah, 34 teams left in our 17-county viewing area. We'll start with Region 1. Pretty much chalk. You did have the 3 seed Stowe losing, but when you lose to St. Ignatius, a lot of teams do that, and it really seems like Cats are having a bit of a bounce back year. St. Ignatius will be going to Medina in Brunswick. Medina to continue that undefeated run. Then Canton playing top-seeded St. Edward at Byers Field. Sure, I guess. That's going to be quite a haul for the Wildcats, but again, we've been talking about it ad nauseum. I still believe that we're on a collision course for Medina and St. Edward to meet in that regional final, but St. Ignatius is starting to look good down the stretch, even with some injuries kind of affecting them in recent weeks.
Yeah, had that great effort defensively that we thought they could have against Stowe. If anybody defensively can put a lock on Drew Aller, maybe it's Ignatius, but they're going to be tested. They're going to absolutely be tested.
Absolutely. All right. Let's go to Division 2. We'll take a look at Regions 5 and 6. We know about our game. It's going to be taking place at Ely Stadium. Then it's Hoban and Nordonia in Ravenna. Hoban's the only team that hasn't played. Nordonia is the only team that Hoban hasn't played of this group so far. And of course, Benny has also played Nordonia. Got to think the Knights are favored in that game, but we know how good the Nordonia Knights are as well. And then down to Region 6, it is Highland facing Toledo Central Catholic in Bellevue. And then there's Avon, who we've been talking about a lot. And then Olmsted Falls, who got that big win over Barberton next week. That'll be another rematch down in Strongsville.
Yeah, 2 thoughts there. We've seen Nordonia this year, and they offensively, after a sluggish start, played so well for the last 3 quarters against Benedictine. They need to have 4 quarters like that to get by Hoban, I think. And the other thing, when I look at Region 6, how good really is Toledo Central Catholic? Because they were a 4 seed, and everybody's you and I have been touting Avon, and I think deservedly so, and came away obviously so impressed with what Olmsted Falls did last week in Barberton. But how good is Toledo Central Catholic? We're going to find out, because Highland is playing so well. They played at a high level down the stretch to get that #1 seed. But Toledo Central Catholic they have slayed many a team in Northeast Ohio in Region 6 in the past.
No kidding. And you mentioned the Bulldogs. Keep an eye on this game, because remember, when these two teams met earlier in the season, 41-29 Avon won, much, much closer than that final score would indicate. The Bulldogs actually led for most of that game. Region 7, real quick, we do have Massillon playing Big Walnut in Mansfield. And then how about Worcester? Worcester, the 14 seed, 7-5. They'll be taking on Green over in Canal Fulton. Nice little run, and as you've said, kind of more ammo for the people who would like to see this playoff expansion be permanent.
Absolutely. They keep winning. It keeps adding to the argument of expanded playoffs, but that'll be fun. Massillon's going to have a test against Sudbury Big Walnut. That'll be fun to see how that one plays itself out in Region 7. But Worcester, as long as they keep winning, TC, who knows? Could they make it all the way to the regional finals? Sure. I'm not gonna argue against it.
I think they can, and that is a good program down there in Worcester, so hats off to those kids. All right, Division 3, Regions 9 and 10. 7 out of the 8 teams remaining are local. Of course, the one we've been paying attention to most is Chardon. They just keep rolling, and they'll host Canfield at Arrowhead Stadium in Girard. And then Kenston and Dover, who we've also been talking up, over in my neck of the woods of Twinsburg. Dover's been playing real well, but Kenston got a big, big win over Steubenville last week. Then in Region 10, holy name, a 28-0 shellacking of top-seeded Norton in the previous round. They'll take on Padua Franciscan in Brooklyn. Only unbeaten team in Region 10 remaining is West Holmes. They will play Rocky River, who won again against Buckeye. That game will be over in Lodi, Dino.
We didn't mention it, but Nico Giorgio of Kenston was our performer of the week that you voted in at WKYC.com. Boy, Kenston is such a different offensive team with him running that offense, obviously. And for them, they beat a good Steubenville team in a shootout. Dover just won a shootout of their own against Aurora. So we'll be watching that one very closely.
Absolutely. I still think Chardon's the favorite overall among these two regions, but they're going to have some tough competition down the stretch. Division 4, Perry moves on. They'll play West Branch and Boardman. Perkins taking on Port Clinton. Unfortunately, Milan Edison, the 16 seed, their run ends after that great upset. How about Glenville? A blowout win over VASJ, but now they get a very tough test in Ursuline. That'll take place in Euclid.
Yeah, it feels like a home game almost for Glenville playing in Euclid. And,
right.
Good for Ted Ginn, Sr. He after such a dreadful start and that big loss to Avon, they played better, got themselves through the Senate League, played well in conference play, and have looked great in the playoffs. It's great to see Glenville relevant in the postseason again.
Oh, no doubt. I feel like a kid again watching them. I know it's a smaller division, but watching them go on a run is always cool to see. Division 5, Region 17, we predicted it, Dino. Yep. 4 unbeaten teams left in this region. Garrettsville Garfield going to face Kirtland in Perry, Lake County Perry, of course. And then Garraway will head to Louisville to take on South Range. Again, we think this is Kirtland's region to lose, but they're going to have to earn it this year.
No doubt. I was just going to say, if they get through and they go 12-0 this week, 13-0 next week to win the region, they will have earned it against some top competition in Division 5.
And we know Tiger Laverty and his Hornets are always up to the task. Region 18, Elmwood is going to be facing Elyria Catholic in Tiffin. And then real quick, Division 6 and 7. Region 21, it'll be Mogador and LeBray over in Niles. Wildcats, of course, always a force in the playoffs. Springfield against Columbia over in Alliance at Marlington High School. Yep. Weller Crestview remains unbeaten. They'll play Carey at Marion Harding Stadium. And then Division 7, Dalton and Lucas down in Worcester. And then St. Paul, always a force in D7. They will play Warren JFK over at Ken Duke Stadium in Medina. So some very good teams remaining at all levels, Dino. And it's very fun. It's always fun to see it. And it's so cool because we've still got 4 games left of this.
Absolutely. But again, our game of the week, and I'm very excited. We'll be heading over to Ely, brand new Ely Stadium. I have not been to the new facility. Very, very excited. Division 2, Region 5 semifinal. Benedictine, the top seed, against Walsh Jesuit. It's a rematch. It's going to be fun. There may be a surprise guest with me Friday night for the game. I'll just leave it there, working on that. And but it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll join you at 6:50 for the pregame at WKYC.com. You can also watch us on the app, on Facebook Live, and as well on YouTube. And then, of course, we'll kick things off at 7 o'clock from Ely. This will be fun, I guarantee it. It's the sequel. It's like The Empire Strikes Back. You know, it's the sequel. The Godfather Part 2 was as good or better than the original, TC.
I say we go triple overtime this time. Let's do it.
Let's
go all the
way. All right, again, Benedictine Walsh Jesuit, our game of the week on Friday night. Hope to see you and have you tune us in for all the action on Friday. For Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching the WKYC Playoff Game of the Week preview show right here on WKYC.com.